I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. I'm going to start with a brief statement. It's with a heavy heart that I would like to start this meeting in memory of Lonnie Farr. Many of you know her. She passed away this weekend. She will be truly missed by the citizens of Fillmore. She used to be a regular at our council. Every meeting she'd sit over there. And she was a friend of many, including myself. May God bless her soul and help her family through this time of mourning. And with that, would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Georgie, would you do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Garola.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Villaseñor.
Here.
Mayor Austin.
Here.
Councilmember Brogy. Councilmember Mendez.
Here. Okay. With that, I'm going to move to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to public comments. Number 5, Lynn Edmonds. There's a 3-minute, you know the rule. 3 minutes. When you get down to 30 seconds left, it turns yellow. Let me set it up first. Might not be working tonight.
My minutes have not started,
I know.
right? Okay, just wanted to be
I
sure.
know.
Just being a little smarty
I
here.
know you can just spread out. Usually work.
True.
Well, let's say when you get a minute, it's going to flash yellow now.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Got it.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. My name is Lynn Edmonds. I live in Fillmore. And I'm just here because I went to the City Theater on Friday night, and I want to encourage us all to go. Sean is doing such a good job bringing wonderful presentations in, and we need to support our town. So it was wonderful. Everybody had a good time. I had 3 generations with me, and everyone had fun. So it was great. So I just want to encourage everyone to come and support the city. That was it.
Thank you. Let me figure out this timer. What's going on? Erica, can you help me? I can't get the 30 seconds to go on. Yeah, but it goes 1. And then it goes down. I'll just leave it at 1 minute. I'll leave it at 1 minute. It doesn't appear to be working, so the time, when you have 1 minute left, it means you have 1 minute left, it'll turn yellow. Next item we'll move to is an item 6, City Council reports, recommendations, and comments. Any comments by council?
Anybody else like to start? Okay, I'll start, Mayor. Thank you. I also want to say a few words about Lonnie, and of course our condolences from our whole city to her family and her loved ones and all of her friends. When we had a city council retreat, or I should call it advance, I think that was called, and we had a meeting where we all got together and talked about what we wanted for the city and how we wanted to promote the city. And one of the comments made by our facilitator was, find the people who are the fans. Right, there's always, and I know all of you are fans too, but it was sort of, there's a lot of folks, especially online, that are just, things that are wrong, right? Things that want to solve, problems that come up. And of course, those are what we address, those are our concerns. And there's also those folks who are the city cheerleaders and who are always just trying to lift the city up, who are trying to clear up maybe miscommunication, say, well, actually, I went to the city council meeting and this is what they did decide. So whatever you heard about XYZ, this is really what it was. And so Lonnie was a fan. She was, I think, the city's #1 fan. And so I always kept that in mind when she was here, and we're just going to miss her. She was our #1 fan, and just our deepest condolences to her family. Just wanted to say that. Lonnie Farr. Lonnie Farr.
She was Richard and Rosa Gallardo's daughter.
She wasn't the teacher's daughter.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So that's just what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Moving on to item number, sorry, I'm a little discombobulated because I'm upset about her. Yes. Number 7, consent calendar.
I'll make that motion, Mayor, to approve consent.
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're moving on to item 8A, to do business, public hearing to receive input regarding the adoption of the district-based election system.
Thank you, Mayor. It is recommended that the City Council tonight receive a report from staff on the districting process and the legal criteria for districts, and conduct a public hearing to receive community input on the composition of districts. And I would like to have introduce you to Justin Levitt with the Vice President of National Demographics Corporation.
Good evening, Mayor Austin, members of the council, members of the community who are here tonight. My name is Dr. Justin Levitt, Vice President of National Demographics, and I'm here to talk to you about district elections. I'm sorry that this is coming at such a hard time. My condolences on the passing of a respected member of the community. Tonight, we're mostly going to be focusing on the background of this process. State law actually requires that we hold 2 hearings prior to the creation of draft maps. And so what tonight is about is beginning to introduce sort of the context, the California Voting Rights Act, what it has meant for cities across the state, what that process involves, the legal requirements involved, including the criteria we use for drawing maps, and then a first look at the demographics of the city of Fillmore. And then we'll open it up for the public hearing to get community input onto the process and the lines that will eventually be drawn. To really start by giving a little bit of background, the California Voting Rights Act is a 2001 law that was written to encourage cities to switch to by-district elections. Up the street from us, we worked with the city of Santa Paula earlier this year, a city that has successfully fought a federal voting rights complaint, still switched to districts because of the California Voting Rights Act. And one of the reasons why it does that is because the law is written in such a way that really makes it very difficult for jurisdictions, cities, school districts, special districts, to win in court a battle over the California Voting Rights Act. We've seen numerous cases go to trial, including most recently the city of Santa Monica, and in no case has a court ever ruled exclusively in favor of the jurisdiction. Every single case, with the Santa Monica case now pending back in the Court of Appeals, has switched to by-district elections. And these lawsuits have been extremely costly. If we're looking at the history of litigation, some of the settlements, not even lawsuits, just the settlements alone have been in 6 or 7 figures. Anaheim, for example, was on the hook for $1.1 million, and they reached an agreement with the plaintiff rather than going to court. In other cases, the city of Santa Monica that is in court right now, the plaintiffs are asking for nearly $30 million. This does not include what the city has already spent in its own defense. And for this reason, there have been nearly 200 cities at this point, 300 school districts, and about 75 special districts, including healthcare districts, airport districts, water districts, have made this transition from at-large to district elections as a result of this demand letter. And that's the legal context that this letter is taking place in. Earlier this year, the city of Thousand Oaks also received a demand letter. They made the transition to district elections earlier this year. In the previous 5 years, cities that have transitioned in our neighborhood include Ojai, Ventura, and as well as smaller cities like Santa Paula and Ojai. And so really what we're looking at here is a legal context that really encourages making this transition from at-large to district elections to avoid the cost of potentially litigating. And even if the city wins, unlike most litigation, it cannot recoup its own expenses from the plaintiff. And I'm happy to talk about that more, but I really want to set the stage. This is not something most cities have come to by choice. This is something that most cities have come to through the demand letter process, something that the state has explicitly granted through laws like AB 350. Which allows for cities to go through this process in a manner protected from litigation as long as you comply with certain meeting requirements. As a general point, what we're talking about here is the method of electing the city council. Most cities in California prior to 2001 used an at-large system where all voters vote for all members of the council. It's the system we currently use. A by-district system is similar to how we elect members to Congress or the state legislature, where the city is broken up into voting areas, and each area has a representative that lives within that area and is voted on by the residents who live within that area. So it's a system that is actually familiar to a lot of us, but most of us think of that as something for Congress or the state legislature, not something for city government. But it is a system that has been adopted by just about every city that has made this transition under the California Voting Rights Act. Now, I mentioned that process that's set out in AB 350. Essentially, what's required is a minimum of 2 public hearings prior to the creation of draft maps. So this hearing and your next hearing, which will be a special meeting, I know it says the 23rd, it's actually on the 26th, on Thursday, are 2 meetings that we're holding to talk about the criteria, the process, the factors that go into draft maps, including communities of interest, days before a public hearing at which they are discussed. And our next 2 hearings on November 2023, all for the first election to happen in November of 2024 during our consolidated election during the presidential election. For all of these hearings, any draft maps have to be posted 7 days in advance of that hearing. And all of this is laid out in the California Voting Rights Act. Now we turn to the California Fair Maps Act, looking at the legal requirements for drawing districts. And these requirements apply to all cities within the state of California. First, equal population. This is the one person, one vote principle laid out in the Baker v. Carr. Basically, it means that our 5 council districts have to have more or less the same number of residents. In this case, it'll be about 3,200 residents per district. What we do is we take the total population count from the 2020 census, divide that number by the number of seats, in this case 5, to get that population for each district. Now, congressional districts have to be exact. You have to get exactly the same number. But for local governments, they recognize that that may be impractical, and so they allow us up to a 10% deviation or difference between the largest and smallest districts. So if each district was 1,000 people, you could have about 100 people over, 100 people under in a given seat, or so about 50-50, and then you could get to about 100 total difference between the largest and smallest. This also points to the fact that districts are not permanent. Every 10 years following the census, the same way we do state redistricting, the city will have to look at its numbers and see whether the numbers are population balanced as well. In addition, federal law also requires we look at the Federal Voting Rights Act. This is the federal voting rights, not the California one, and it talks about protected class communities. And it basically wants us to ensure that protected class communities have their voting rights respected in whatever district system that is used. And the same rule applies to any jurisdiction from your smallest city all the way up to state legislative redistricting. While race and ethnicity cannot be the only factor or even the predominant factor in the creation of a district, it's one of many potential communities of interest or neighborhood formations that must be considered as we look at the criteria on the second column, particularly the community of interest criterion. After we look at the Voting Rights Act part of this, and we're going to look at that today as well, the California criteria for cities are rank ordered in terms of priority. First, contiguity. This is the idea that a district has to have one outside boundary. You can't have a little bit right up in the hills and another little bit down on the highway if they're not physically connected to each other. And that's really an important point for contiguity. You have to have physical, geographic connection. So not little bits and pieces across, they have to have one outside boundary. Second, neighborhoods and communities of interest. The law specifically says that communities that share socioeconomic or geographic similarity should be kept together to the extent practical to minimize their division for the purpose of their fair and effective representation. And there's a lot in that statement. And really unpacking it, we really want to think about those areas that we all know, different parts of the city, and even in a small city. I grew up in a city of 10,000 people, and I could tell you that there were sometimes very distinctive areas within the city. That's what we're looking at for neighborhoods and communities of interest. Third, easily identifiable boundaries. This is the principle that it should be easier for voters to understand which district they live in. So to the extent we could use major roads or other natural or man-made features to divide the districts, rather than jogging through small streets, alleyways, and so forth, we should strive to do so. And lastly, compactness. The law specifically defines compactness as not bypassing one group of people to get to a more distant group of people. And this is really aimed at hooks and fingers and oddly shaped lines that look like they're trying to get to a specific area. However, these are, first of all, in priority. So if a community of interest or neighborhood looks odd because it is shaped oddly, we have to keep that neighborhood or community together first. Also, we have to keep our census blocks whole. Sometimes, especially in smaller cities like ours, we see that census blocks have strange shapes. Maybe like along the train tracks where, it goes for a half a mile because there's no place where the census put a dividing boundary. And so if that weirdness is caused by the census geography, then we have to keep the census block together. Also, the California Fair Maps Act specifically says boundaries cannot favor or discriminate against a political party. And this means that as part of our discussion, as part of our decision-making process, we should not be considering partisanship or political factors like that. Our local elections are already nonpartisan. Most of the cities that I work with deal with this by just excluding the partisan data altogether. Because I will tell you, even talking about competitive elections can get you in trouble under the partisan discussion. Looking at our total demographic profile now, what we see is that the 2020 census records a population of 16,462 residents. That is the number we divide by 5 to get our ideal district population of 3,292 residents per district. Remember, that's not going to be an exact number in any of the 5 districts. It's probably going to be somewhere around between 3,000 and 3,500, give or take, between each district. Of the total population, looking at some of those racial statistics, about 77% were Hispanic or Latino, 19% non-Hispanic white. If we look down below that, where we look at citizen voting age population, we see some different percentages. So the Latino population by citizen voting age is 63%. So that citizen voting age means that it's just the population over the age of 18 with U.S. citizenship. Why do we pay attention to this number? Well, because the courts tell us to. This is what the courts often call the eligible voter number. And particularly when we look at communities like the Latino community, we see gaps or differences because of differences in age and differences in citizenship rates. And so it's very common to see a city with a higher Latino total population than eligible voter or citizen voting age. We also have information on registration and turnout. These are estimates based on surname data. The surname data are not as precise, but they are the best we have available for registration and voting estimates. It also gives us an information about turnout in midterms and presidential election years. We can go back past 2022 if we need to see what turnout or registration looks like in a presidential election year. And then finally, in the second column, are other factors that are part of what make neighborhoods neighborhoods. Now, I always say the numbers are never a substitute for local knowledge of the community, never. But what they do is help us see things on the map that we can look at and say, is this a potential community? What do we hear people talk about? And sometimes some of these statistics can be very important at looking at, for example, where we see renters and where we see people who own homes. Or maybe multifamily housing like apartments and condominiums versus more single-family housing. Also, we can look at factors like income, education levels, where we have children at home, what language is spoken at home, and other factors that might influence what neighborhoods and communities mean to us. These are in support of neighborhoods and communities, not a substitute for that testimony. And by the way, all of this data comes from the census. Other than the registration and voting, which come from the state of California directly, the rest of this data is all from the American Community Survey, which replaced the old long form of the census. And we can also map these. And I say, if you want to look at those spreadsheets in more detail, this presentation will be available online. So you can really study these maps and charts as well. Looking at our Latino citizen voting age population map, the areas that are in the blues are under 35% Latino, and the purple's under 25%. The areas that are in the pinks and yellows, those are majority Latino. Areas that are in pink are over 75% Latino. Areas in orange between 65 and 75. And what we really see is that the western portion, just west of A Street, is one of our highest concentrations of Latino population in the city. It's not the only one, however, and there are Latino concentrations throughout much of the southern portion of the city along the track as well. On the other hand, when we look at our Asian American community, or African American community, or other demographics, we don't see that same concentration or pattern. This doesn't mean there may not be potential communities, and if community residents want to identify a Black neighborhood or Chinese neighborhood, that can be factored in as part of our communities of interest analysis. Now, as I mentioned, we do look at those demographics as well on the second column. So, for example, this shows us where the census found people who speak Spanish at home. This is at a slightly bigger unit of analysis. So most of that green area between the highway and 4th Street is in one census tract. But that shows you that in that census tract, about somewhere between 50 and 65% of the population speak Spanish at home. And the precise numbers we can give you as well. They'll be available online. Notice that this may not correspond perfectly to our Latino map, because there are going to be differences in neighborhoods in between Spanish speakers and where Latinos live. Similarly, our map of renters, we see that kind of, the southwestern portion of the city is where we see the largest concentration of renters. Again, this is at a higher unit of analysis, of sort of units, all that green area in the southwest corner is part of one census tract. But it gives us a general picture where we see more renters, where we see more owners. And we can do that same kind of map with any of the other demographics if there's a request to see something specific. Now, in terms of the public hearing tonight and on the 26th, what we're really looking is to answer your questions first and foremost about the redistricting process, and also hear from you about what you would like to see go into the draft maps. What communities of interest or neighborhoods do you want us to test or take into account as we draw our first round of draft maps in November? And so with that, I will leave you here, and I'm happy to address any questions you have. Thank you for your time.
I have a question about identifying the districts. We definitely live in a small town that has kind of recognizable neighborhoods. My question is whether the districts are required to be numbered, or if there is a possibility of actually giving them names to make them more easily identifiable, should that be the way we go.
That's an interesting question. I would certainly discourage any naming system that attaches a name of an existing neighborhood to a specific district, because as time shifts, neighborhood boundaries or district boundaries may change. However, I do know of cases where cities have decided to use, I don't know, in Arizona, there's one that uses different names of cactuses for their different districts. And there are several cities that use letters instead of numbers, like District A rather than District 1. That's something we could certainly explore later if that was of interest.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Oh, may I go, Mayor? Go ahead. Oh, okay. Question regarding something that I would like to see, and that is looking at, I know you showed us some data on income, but I think also sort of a map would be really interesting to see. I saw the breakdown, and really you could see, 75,000 and above, half the population almost, and then 75 or below the other half. So I think that would be really important to note.
We can certainly show a map of that
Okay.
in Thursday.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I wanted to see at least 5 maps drawn. I think I heard earlier that it was going to be 3. I'd like to maybe we could do 5.
We are certainly happy to, figure out some different concepts. I will say that, our first round of maps is designed to try to illustrate lots of options. And one thing that we don't generally do at that third public hearing, but often for the fourth, is put 2 pieces of 2 different maps together. Like people who like the north half of this map and the south half, or maybe east and west. And so, think of whatever, I think we'll do 5 options, but there's even more because you can think about how they might combine together. But I will take that for sure. Take that down.
Thank you. I kind of want to go back to the initial part of your presentation where you were talking about the onset of this districting. And I have a background, I've worked in the legal field for 27, well, longer than that, probably 40 years. And the one thing that strikes me that I am having a really hard time getting past, and I'm wondering if you can help me to understand this, and those in the audience as well. When a person files a complaint, that person is known as the injured party. And any other kind of a lawsuit whatsoever, that injury has to be put forth. How were you injured? What were your injuries? And I've not seen that happen in this case. And I've talked to so many people since this has come up where other cities, there is no explanation. They don't have to explain their injuries. How were they injured? So I'm curious about that. If you can explain that to me. Why is this different from every other lawsuit in the state of California? You go into a court of law and I was injured, but I don't have to tell you how I was injured or what my injuries are. And then another part to that, going back to the beginning, when we received this letter from an attorney, whether it was the attorney that started this in Malibu or the current attorney in this current litigation, the city has to make a payment of $35,000 to the attorney right out the gate, and that's just to put the litigation on hold, at bay.
So, to answer that second question,
Okay.
first, and I'll get to the first question as well. To answer the second question first, after the city adopts a map, then the attorney is allowed to send that request for, it's about 37,000 today. It adjusts every year for inflation. At that point, that's the point when they can send that request for the money. And at that point, the city, at their point, they're saying that the city complied with the California Voting Rights Act, and therefore they do not intend to pursue the matter any further.
So
That's what that demand for payment at the end of the process represents.
So simply by writing a letter to a municipality, they can say, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, at the end, if you agree with X, Y, and Z, if you do comply, then you have to pay me $37,000.
Right. And if you don't comply, it started with 30,000, and then it's gone up every year since.
Right, I understand.
You know, if you don't comply, then they have the right to file a lawsuit in court saying that you had the opportunity to comply and you didn't. Essentially, this is a process created by the state legislature. Initially, before 2015, you had to go to the extent of filing a lawsuit. And that's why a lot of those settlements we talked about that reached $1 million in Anaheim, 900,000 in Whittier, that was that era. And as a result, the League of Cities pushed back and say, give us a way of not having to go to court and settle. And so the legislature came up with AB 350, which allows for this demand letter process. And as you said, Mr. Schenkman, the attorney from Malibu, who sent the majority of these demand letters, probably at least 70% of them, figured out that you could just send a letter and then leave it open as to whether or not, if the city decided not to comply or school district, you would always have the right to sue them after that point. And I would say one of the big reasons, that's one of the big holes in the California Voting Rights Act. But every time the legislature has taken up this issue, they've made it easier for the attorneys.
Okay, I have to ask this, and don't mean to put you on the spot on this,
Yeah.
and I don't want to sound like I'm antagonistic towards you, because we appreciate your help and appreciate the guidance you're going to be giving us. But how is it that this has gone on for so long, and cities are rolling over, municipalities, districts, they're rolling over, and no one has said, wait a minute, where is the logic in this? I'm completely.
And I'll be honest, our firm has, constantly advocated against these rules. We advocated against AB 350. We advocated against the California Voting Rights Act when it was first proposed. But groups like, a lot of the interest groups in Sacramento, but including the League of Cities, have taken positions of either neutral or in favor of the California Voting Rights Act as a principle, and have advocated for these reforms. So talk to your lawmakers.
Yeah.
Everyone.
At a minimum, when some of the changes that should have occurred along the way when they saw the direction this was going, is they should have put a population limit on this for a city the size of Fillmore. And like you mentioned, you came from a city of 10,000 people. It's just almost impossible to do effectively, to me. And here's that word again that came up last week. It was extortion. You have an attorney who says, hey, I can write a letter and I can get now $37,000 right out the gate. So back to the injured party. Why is?
So in the days, and particularly in a lawsuit case, when a demand letter becomes a lawsuit, what they do, what they'll do, or what the prospective plaintiff will do, and I'll speak generally here so we're not talking about the city's specific liability, is find a person who, generally of a protected class community within the city, who is a voter, who has voted in previous elections, and is willing to go on the record and say that they feel that they have been discriminated against as a voter. And if you look at the lawsuits in Santa Monica, or the proposals, the claims made in other cities, you can find it's generally they'll find at least one, if not a handful of voters of a protected class or multiple protected class communities to say that they feel that the current system treats them unfairly. And that is enough of a case under the rules of the California Voting Rights Act to get that into court. Then to prove it, all you have to prove is that protected class communities vote differently than other groups, maybe than each other, and that can sometimes change the outcome of an election if, in theory, there's a lot of math at that point. But it's generally somebody claiming that they feel that the current system of at-large elections disenfranchises them.
But they don't have to actually explain how they were disenfranchised.
They don't have to go into detail about that. Generally, they'll make some claim about how, about how a different candidate could have won if only the election were only held in this particular district or section of the city.
Ridiculous.
And so because that's actually how a lot of federal voting rights cases look. But that's generally the argument.
But there is not a requirement for a specific plaintiff to clarify that
So
in any given situation.
So yes, so essentially, what the plaintiff will go in with is, what the lawyers will go in with, is a plaintiff who makes this claim that they feel like their right to vote was discriminated, and they'll go in with some statistics, numbers, showing that if you had district elections and if you had this particular district, a sample district, that they draw for this purpose, that you might have had a different winner in this majority Latino or majority Asian American or majority African American district than you did citywide.
That wouldn't happen, though, if you've already agreed to roll over.
Right, because of the
You'll
demand
never hear
letter
from the
process, they don't actually have to show anything up front in the demand letter. All they have to do is make a claim that they don't have to show any of their numbers up front. They get to wait and see what the city does before they show any of their numbers.
Wait until they get their $37,000.
Well, until the time passes. Because if the city doesn't do it, they can't bill for the 37, but they do reserve the right to go to court. And that will be more than 37,000. They only get the settlement or the payment if the city goes through the districting process. If the city says, no, we don't want to do districts, then the city doesn't pay the $37,000 right now, but the plaintiff can then sue the city. And that's going to be more than $37,000. If the city does the process, they're capped at what they can ask the city for.
So would you define, and I'm sorry to be going on, but I'm trying to get this clear in my head.
Sure.
Would you define that $37,000 as payment for previous disenfranchised individual?
Yeah,
Or
could I weigh in on that, Mayor and council members? So the statute creates the presumption that that person was injured if they allege it, and you switch to districts, that you're consenting that happened. And so they will have to give us a fee bill to prove up that they spent $37,000, and they will say that writing that letter, their demographer, their initial analysis, that somehow magically adds up to just over $37,000. And so then that's what we would pay them. But they have to prove that they spent money to earn that. So it's not payment for prior injuries to people. It's what the attorney's office allegedly spent to make us switch to districts.
one other question, and then I'll be quiet. When we get into further public hearings like this, will there be an opportunity for a Q&A for the public? Or is it, because I'm assuming when we open up the public hearing, they can make their comments, but we can't speak, we can't address them.
Right.
But if you want, at the end of the public hearing, you can always call Mr. Levitt back up.
We could ask the questions on their behalf.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's by your request. If there's a question you need answered right now, you could call one of us up and we would give the answer.
I'm going to be really interested to see how you split the city up to not have, I mean, we have 126 splitting our city this way and this side. We have, we have a mountain range over here and we go this way. I'm going to be really interested to how these districts are drawn, because some of them may not be contiguous. Like we're planning. Some of them may go like this and then veer this way and go this way and this way. I don't see how an at-large, as we're going now, we're 71% Hispanic. Each one of us runs against everybody that's running in the whole city. So we're getting Hispanic votes as well as white votes. So I can't see where this individual thinks that they are somehow hampered or hurt by this. And that's just me venting. But I'll be really interested to see how you draw these boundaries. Anybody else?
I do, Mayor. I have a follow-up question. Thank you. You mentioned the data that has had to be produced. That again, seeing that none of these lawsuits have won when they have gone to court, and that means there has been a production of data to back up the plaintiff's argument. Is that true? Can you say that for those lawsuits?
So I would say that's an interesting question. I would say that in a lot of these cases, particularly since the law changed in 2015, there has been, at least no analysis done, no public analysis. We haven't been, there may be cities that have studied it privately behind, the seal of closed session, but because of the way the demand letter process works, a city essentially can make the transition without doing any kind of legal analysis of whether or not it has racially polarized voting or not. And I can tell you that the plaintiffs may claim to do a lot of this, and in some cases they do. In some cases it's very questionable how much work they've actually done. And I know of cities that have challenged that $37,000 or whatever the payment was at the time, based on, show us your work, show us that you did any analysis other than just pull up some census data for the city, Some of the demand letters in the past have had the wrong city's information on them. And it's just been, this is, and then they say this is the legislature writing a law and not necessarily thinking about how it's going to work in practice by creating a big loophole.
Okay. And then also, to my follow-up question is, if you have data, excuse me, my voice isn't great today, you have data on cities that have switched to voting districts from the 2001 when it changed, or the California Voting Rights Act, or since 2014, and demographically or diversifying city councils and districts and boards, what kind of data does that, what has the data shown? That's what
Sure. And I will say we have looked into this, and some of it can be very hard to untangle from other factors, because the natural ebb and flow of political partisanship from 2014 to the present, has really influenced election results, probably more than the election system used. What we have seen is that overall, since switching to districts, there are more elected Latinos on local government. Now, whether that's because of the district-based system, because of partisan shifts, because of turnover on councils, it's really hard to untangle why. And there's a lot of factors that influence all of those things at once. I'm happy to talk about districts more generally, but it can be a real complicated thing to look at. What's districts? What's the partisan fluctuation? What is the factors at each election specifically? But the general trend is that we have seen more Latinos elected at local government. We have not seen more African Americans or Asian Americans elected. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, we're going to go to public hearing. Again, your time is 3 minutes. When you hit a minute, it will turn yellow. When it turns red, your time is up. First speaker is Shell Michelle.
I'm giving my time to Brandy Hollis.
Okay, Brandy Hollis, you're next. Let me switch it.
Good evening. All right. Well, I didn't plan to speak tonight, actually, until I saw the demand letter today. And I don't know if you guys know, I do have a legal degree. So first thing when I saw the letter, I was like, ha, this is great. It's not even signed by an attorney at law, because, I mean, any lawyer I've ever worked for definitely is signing their name, attorney at law, right? I don't know, you've worked in law offices, I'm sure you can know. But I noticed that, so I started looking some things up. So it just implies that Jason Dominguez is the attorney representing Joe Ramirez, right? So I thought that was really interesting. Also, it's a PC, a professional corporation, not an LLC. That was pretty interesting, and one of the reasons why somebody would do a PC versus an LLC is to protect themselves against malpractice. So with the PC, you have to be really careful and to make sure you're only practicing your specialty law. So if you look up Jason Dominguez on his political sites, you can see that his specialty of law is actually environmental law. Now, let's go back to this demand letter. So we're basing all this on a demand letter. So this is not the city of Santa Monica's attorney that wrote a letter. This is Druven PC, which was just founded this year in 2023. The person that is an attorney for Druven PC is Jeff Myers, not Jason Dominguez. And if you look up their address that they give on this demand letter, it's actually a fluid workspace. So I could pay $300 and have an address for this letter to go to. So I know attorneys that have done this sort of thing. It's not practicing attorneys, like attorneys that are chasing ambulances. So that's what we have. So do I think they have the money to even back up this demand? No. I think they're very careful about not identifying themselves as the attorney on record for Joe Ramirez. And then if we go even further, who's Jason Dominguez and Joe Ramirez? And if you follow all the political trails, man, it's so twisted. I only have 3 minutes left, but I'm telling you, it's twisted, and $37,000 is very close to what somebody was asking for on the internet to keep their facility running. Oh my gosh, it's. I could go on and on and on, but I think you guys get the point. Yeah, these people that are lawyers and named complainants in this demand letter are people who have sworn to be nonpartisan, non-political, but if you go through who they're associated with in this room, in other rooms, it's very clear that this is a political move. I don't think it's for a real reason besides an agenda that's being pushed. Fillmore's so small. Like, how would you even break that up into fair districts? Like, it's like this big, I can walk across it. So how are we gonna divide that up? It doesn't even make sense. And then if you look, where they had the red map and the green map, they're the exact, like just the slight number off. So if it's like one number off, it would look distinctly different than it was. Like, we're prettily even divided throughout Fillmore. So if we're gonna do something like this and take this seriously, this guy did a good job for like why we should pay him to keep doing what he's doing, but let's go back to the demand letter and actually verify that these people are even gonna demand this money. Who's the real attorney of record? Who is demanding this money and why they're demanding it, who they're involved with, and why they would make a move to demand this, because I don't think the city's part has done their correct due diligence. And if you have, I mean, it's Googleable. Like, I Googled it today, so sorry if I'm a little whoppy-jawed, but like, let's stop, back up, go back to the demand letter, and it's not the people that sued Santa Monica. This is somebody that actually, I can't find any lawsuits on them that they filed against anybody, nor have won. So let's stop, rewind, and take it back. Thanks.
Next speaker is Mary Bennett.
I'm giving my time to Rhonda Taylor.
Okay, who's giving their time to Rhonda? Because I have 4 of them up here already. Is Paul giving his time up? Diane Sutton?
Yes.
Stephen Sutton?
Yes.
Murray Bennett?
Yes.
Annette Sula?
Yes.
Okay, well, you guys are all going to be on one clock then. Sherry Wright?
No.
No?
I'm on my own.
You're on your own? Okay, come on up. Let me reset the timer. Okay.
As a nearly lifelong resident of this small community, it truly saddens me that we have lowered ourselves to this type of divisiveness. A single Fillmore resident claiming status as a member of a protected class and under the threat of a lawsuit has and will continue to cost the city tens of thousands of dollars. Spending money on any litigation pulls funds from the things that matter to our community, such as our parks and rec and public safety. For the residents that complain that our parks lack proper lighting during sporting events and practices, I hope you are actively participating in this process of public hearings. It should bother you that money will be wasted on legal and demographer fees to appease one Fillmore voter, and a lawsuit if the city doesn't comply. I wonder what the financial motive is behind this legal maneuver. I listened to Councilmember Villaseñor's video on her perceived advantages of the voting districts, but there are serious concerns and disadvantages that were not addressed. First is the expense incurred to the city, including but not limited to the demographer. These expenses are ongoing as voting districts must be reviewed and possibly redrawn after each census and significant growth. It is important that voters understand they will no longer be able to vote for 5 council members, instead voting for 1 within their districts, and candidates could win an elected position having received very few votes. It is important that elected officials know something about their responsibilities before taking office. Instead of the ability to elect the most knowledgeable candidate, we're going to elect them simply by where they reside. The attorney for the impacted Fillmore resident, who isn't even here tonight, claims that hundreds of government agencies in California have established district elections in recent years, including every other city in Ventura County, end quote. The truth in this is that government agencies have been coerced into voting districts, and not because it is best for their community, it is because they want to avoid the litigation and the costs associated with that litigation. If no candidate chooses to run in a particular district, the California Election Code authorizes the City Council to solicit applications from interested parties that reside within the district, interview them, and appoint a representative. The bottom line is, your elected officials really aren't elected. Our community is being divided into groups of race, beliefs, income, and the list goes on and on. As a council, I urge you to be unique and stand up to the scare tactics and the bullying that truly serves no real purpose to a town with diversity like we have here in Fillmore. And in ending, I would hope that any council with a personal connection to this person would recuse themselves from any voting related to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, no clapping. Lynn Edmonds?
Again, good evening to everybody. I came to say thank you for moving ahead with this and being professional and saving our district money, because it would be, I think, throwing money down the tube if we don't. I understand that it is a difficult thing to swallow. I can remember my mother telling me multiple times that life is not fair, so just deal with it. I'm not saying that in this situation, but I am saying that I think we need to look at the overall picture and not at our grievances. I would like to appreciate the fact that you asked for 5 maps instead of 3. I think the more that we have to see, the better we as a group can do. I also appreciate the fact that everything will be in both English and Spanish so that everyone will feel welcome. I was hoping we might be able to get some of the meetings that we have that are available for the community to be not in the city council office here, because people would feel much more comfortable if they were, let's say, at their local school, if they could do it at Mountain Vista or Rio Vista. If they could do it there, then people would feel comfortable, and we probably would get more people to come. They feel intimidated when they're here. I don't see a light yet, so. And then finally, I have asked a lot of people because I wanted to see what people thought about this. And some don't understand. When I moved here, the one thing we were really excited about is that there was no white area and a Latino area, every other community we'd ever been in. And this way, I have Latino neighbors on every side of me. And it's wonderful to live in such a two actually, that you're not isolated in your ethnicity, and I appreciate that. So I'm very surprised at the map that shows very strict lines. I think that we can look at them much more carefully. And then secondly, if you look at the history of Latinos that are elected, the city council you see right here is very unusual. There are 10 in the whole history of Fillmore, and 3 of those are sitting right here. So there were only 7 in the first 100+ years. And so I think, although we tend to, if you see the voting, 70% are voters, but yet they are not voting for the person that is of their ethnicity, it appears. But what I heard from most of the people I talked with was that they're really excited to be able to see a person that they can go to individually. I know when I was on the city council, people would call me up and say, I don't know who to go to, I don't know anyone but you.
Lynn?
And I think that's important to know.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What the heck? Now it beeps when your time's up. I don't know where that one came from. Christine Mariotti? Just don't get the beep, okay?
Okay.
I can turn the beep off, I think.
Thanks.
I don't know where it's at.
Good evening. I'm Christina Maratti. I'm a resident of Fillmore. Sherry and Brandy took most of my talking notes, so I'm not going to reiterate what they said. I just agree with what they said and everything they said, and Sherry articulated it much better than I could articulate it. I did want to address one issue that Sherry touched on briefly, and that was that if no one runs in the district. We are a country that was founded on the principles of you get to elect the person you want to represent you. You have the right to vote for that person. And if there are districts where no one is running, first of all, it's not fair to the people that are running. All of you worked very hard to get into office. You all walked districts. You all took time away from your families. You all fundraised. And so you all did the work to get into this seat. But if a district doesn't have anyone running, then people can just apply. That's not just. That's not fair. And that's not fair to you guys, and that's not fair to the people at Fillmore that they don't have a say in all of their elected officials. I also wanted to say that I understand that congressional districts and assembly districts, we're not a congressional district or an assembly district. We are a small town. So to compare us that we need to be redistricted in a way that larger cities are, it doesn't make sense because we're a small town. So my final note is I would ask you guys to think about why are we caving into bullying tactics and a possible lawsuit, and why is the city accepting this? We teach our children, I think all of you have children, we teach our children to stand up to bullies. We teach our children that we're not going to just sit and let a bully bully us. And here we are afraid of what could happen, and we're caving in. So I'd ask you to please get a backbone and please stand up, because we all love our city. Each one of you up there loves our city. And this would change the dynamics of what our city looks like. Thank you for your time. And I yield whatever remaining time I have to Rhonda Taylor.
Well, it's already gone. Because I think I think she's gonna have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18 minutes.
And 55 seconds.
Nope, 18 minutes. Come on up, Rhonda. Hope you're ready to talk.
I can talk a long time. If you remember, I was an educator, so I can talk all day. I want to go back to what I'm talking about the letter, the form letter that you all received, or that our city received. And I want to go back to what Brandy started. I, too, looked up the Druven PC. And if you look at the bottom of that first page where it says Druven PC, it says druven.com. That is no such thing. There's no such domain as that. There is a druven.law. So I called that number and I asked to speak to Mr. Jason, what's his name? Dominguez. And they hung up on me. So just want to say you might want to just kind of check that out and see who he is or where he comes from, or just what it is. So I'm going to read the letter because a group of us got together and we had some talking points. Some of it you've already talked about, some of it, your questions. We had the same questions. All right, so it says, Dear City Clerk, first we would like to acknowledge and thank you for your work serving the city of Fillmore. District elections have swept California. Well, have they swept because of this complaint letter? Yes, that's the only reason they're sweeping. No government jurisdiction in California of which this office is aware has successfully defended a complaint alleging a violation of the CVRA. I guess so, they're all bullied. They're all scared to death, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you for doing that with the money. That's very hard to do. On behalf of Joe Ramirez, a member of a protected class and registered voter in the city of Fillmore, this letter asserts violations in the method of conducting elections under the California Voting Rights Act, the CVRA, and voter polarization. We too want to know what those violations are. How was he injured? I like that point. What is the complaint? Can we ask for a list that is wrong? So maybe we could do our own investigation and fix what is wrong. I can't fix it if I don't know what it is. According to AB 182, paragraph 2, it talks about it's a paragraph that says, this bill would prohibit the use of district-based election in a political subdivision if it would impair the ability of a protected class as defined to elect candidates of his choice. The bill would require a court to implement specified remedies. That's where I'm going to stop. Can we look at those remedies right now? That's what I just asked before. If we know what's wrong, we can fix it. If I don't know what it's wrong, I don't know what the violations are, there's no way we can work on that. Those are things just to ponder. The next paragraph, pursuant to California law, you now have 45 days from receipt of this letter to adopt a resolution outlining its intent to transition from at-large to district elections, detailing specific steps it will take to facilitate this transition and estimating the time frame for this transition. This is a threat, also known in elementary school as bullying. We said it again, Carrie said it a while ago about bullying and extortion. If a city does not adopt a resolution to this effect within 45 days from receipt of this letter, legal action would be commenced in California Superior Court to require the city to institute district elections pursuant to the CVRA. Again, what is the offense? What are we working with? Why are we going to the Superior Court? We don't even know what we're doing wrong. The next paragraph, district elections have led elsewhere to greater representation and more candidates seeking election to elective bodies and to greater participation in and interest by the community in local government agencies and elections. And I think Christine's the one that said, so what are the statistics? Where's the proof? If we did do district elections, how do we know that they're going to fix anything? We don't know what the problem was, and here's our solution to do districts. We do the districts, and I don't know, did we fix it? Did we not fix it? Not sure. If I get in my car, I know that my tire's still flat. If I didn't fix the tire, I fixed the radiator. So there's no way that we can know if we fixed it. We would like to see some anecdotal evidence. I think that's what you were saying, Christina, about the evidence. Where's the evidence that it's working? We don't see that, or we don't even know what the problem is, I should say. The next paragraph, as a result of the increasing diversity in Fillmore, the desirability of and need for district elections will only grow in the coming years. So this must be a lawsuit about what could possibly happen? So a lawsuit for future problems that we don't even know what they are? Ooh, I might file one of those myself. You know, if I thought maybe in the future I might, get in an accident, I'm gonna file one of those lawsuits if it's about the future. How can they file a future lawsuit? Hundreds of government agencies in California have established district election in recent years, including every other city in Ventura County. So what? Okay, here's what my mom used to tell me. Now, we lived in Louisiana. Okay, she would say, if all of your friends are going to go down to the Mississippi River Bridge and jump off, are you going to jump off with them? Now, if you've never seen the Mississippi River Bridge, I hated to drive over it. It's so scary. It's tall, the Mississippi River is deep. No way am I going to jump off with my friends. But that's what he's saying here. So everybody else is doing it, so you all do it too. The terms of existing council members will not be affected by the transition to district elections. Yeah, they will. Because right now we have two people that live close to each other, so one of them's not going to be able to run if the other one's still there. So yeah, it will be. That's not true. The next paragraph. We look forward to hearing from you. Maybe. Well, when the check comes, that's what he should have said. And resolving the issues presented. We anticipate a start date of district elections in November 2024. The final implementation of district elections would not occur until November 2026. And like we've already said, people don't even know where their districts are for the school board. How are they going to know what their districts are for city council? They're just not. Nobody's really concerned about it. They don't even know we have districts for school board. I just wanted to say that. Please advise us whether you would like to discuss a voluntary change to your current at-large electoral system so we will know whether to prepare for litigation. So if it's a voluntary change, to me that says we don't have to pay the $37,000 because we're volunteering to change. So we're going to pay them even though we're volunteering to change? I've never volunteered somewhere and still got paid. Again, thank you for your attention to this matter. We are confident that the city government will be an even better institution with district elections, more representative and in compliance with state law. Again, where's the proof? Is this another look into the future or another future lawsuit? So what I'm asking is, Mr. Dominguez and Mr. Ramirez, allow our city council to at least make an informed decision. I don't think that you're informed enough. This letter doesn't, there's lots of things that, that don't make sense. There's lots of things that we don't know. We don't know the information that he says that we should know. It's just a complaint. Like Carrie said, it's just an injury. Could be a leg, could be an arm, could be a head, whole body, Don't know. How much is it going to cost us? $37,000, whether it's a head or an arm or a foot or a toe. So I don't know. I'm sorry that you have to make that decision. I wish you did not have to, but there are some things that are just not right. And so we would like you just to think about these things that we talked about in this letter. Thank you. And I still have 8 minutes, so if somebody else needs it,
Nope,
please do.
it's already given up. Last speaker is Maria Alves.
Well, she was yielding her time to Rhonda too, so.
Okay, well then you have 11 minutes, Rhonda. Time's up. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item. We're not supposed to discuss, we're not up here to discuss anything or answer any of the questions, okay? So we're going to move on to our, what? Okay. From council?
From council for the demographer, I think is what Tiffany was saying.
Okay, any questions for the demographer? No? Do you?
Can I just clarify something?
Okay.
So the alleged injury is that there's been racially polarized voting, which has prevented the candidates of the claimant from being elected. So it's not that there's no injury, it's implied under the law that that's what he's alleging. Racially polarized voting.
Racially polarized voting with no other details. I mean,
Well, he did include the demographic information and showed that although, historically, we're quite a while, I think he went back to like 10 years, there's been a majority of residents in the city that are, of a Hispanic, but the candidates that have won haven't been Hispanic to the same percentage. And so he's saying that if there'd been districts, there'd be a different outcome.
Unbelievable.
Those communications that I believe you had with that attorney, was that written or via phone?
I have spoken with him on the phone, but he did send us some written information.
Okay. Could that be made publicly available, the written?
Sure. I think we shared it with council, but I'll double check and make sure you get
Okay.
everything we had.
I'm sorry, I missed your question, Chris.
If there was additional supplemental written information.
Oh, okay. Then one other question I had that was raised by a couple of our speakers. Did anybody look into this attorney that's?
Yes.
So.
Yes, we
above board and.
we discovered no comment. We discovered everything that Ms. Hollis explained to you and came to the same information.
So I can call him up and ask him a sequel question, huh?
Maybe he would have the answer for you on that. Well, I mean, that's what his State Bar page says, but, I mean, as we've conveyed to the council previously when we were doing the resolution of intention, this isn't typically although he is known to have sent some of these claims before, this isn't typically what he does, and as Ms. Halls pointed out, it's not a law firm letterhead, like there's a lot of things that are unusual in this situation.
And I bring up again the weirdness of the attorney that was filing these all over California, came through our county and skipped us.
Right,
And
he did.
This guy comes back.
Right, but now this is probably on his radar, and so even if we didn't go forward now, Mr. Shankman might come back to us and move forward.
But I think what our mayor is suggesting is that he skipped us for a reason.
Right.
No, I agree. I mean, we hired a demographer at the time. We looked into it.
And he never came back.
And he never came back, but I talked to him, we sent him letters, we explained what the current demographics were on the council, and he seemed satisfied that it was working here. But then this man who himself was a candidate, well, I guess he served one term in Santa Barbara and then was a candidate, but he felt that if there had been districts in Santa Barbara where he lost, that he would have been reelected, and so he believes that everyone should switch to districts. And when he found out that we didn't have them, when he saw that article, that's when he sent his demands.
Excuse me, City Attorney. So if we say hypothetically, we say after we go through this process and we come to the conclusion, no, we're not going to go to district elections, then another lawyer can come in and sue us again?
If we haven't switched to districts, if we stay at large, we could always get another letter from anyone making that demand. Even if we pay this man the money to go away, someone else could come in.
Let's pray one of us wins the Publishers Clearinghouse next week.
Well, is that still a thing?
I'll give the city $1 million and sit off the dais.
And that goes back to what I said on our last council meeting, that the only way I think we're going to protect ourselves and smaller communities like this is we need to pull in our representatives from Sacramento. I don't know how we do that. I mean, I've made phone calls this week trying to launch something, but unless that law changes, and the simplest thing in my mind, my thinking is, restrict it to population size. Communities like the size of Fillmore, where let's say 30,000 or under, this doesn't apply. And I don't know how easy that would do, or it would be to have happen, but that would be a battle. And we don't have time.
Well, but, sorry to interrupt you if you weren't done speaking.
No.
But if that legislation were to be adopted, the council could always rescind the ordinance and go back to at-large voting if the council desired. If you were able to get legislation adopted next year or at some point in the future.
Would we get our money back?
No. I doubt they
Could
would
we
include that in them.
Could we countersue? Any other questions?
I guess maybe as an affirmation of the concern that Carrie mentioned, essentially, we're guilty of something we don't know until we can prove ourselves innocent, until somebody else comes along and makes the same claim. It's deeply troubling and clearly shows that the law is deeply flawed, not in the sense that there wasn't some good intent behind it, but it's clearly very short-sighted. That leaves us with negative ramifications almost any way we go. In some ways, that's where we, I think, have to make tough decisions about what is the lesser of two evils or two wrongs, maybe, something that doesn't fit, while also pursuing something that could actually change that. Maybe as we continue to go down this path, the reason why I voted for the intent was so that we can actually explore this publicly, because many cities explore it, but maybe behind the scenes, and the public isn't fully informed. So I think we need to reiterate the fact that the last meeting, we voted on our intent to go down this path. That doesn't mean that we have to continue down the path or not create a path, an off-ramp later down the road that better suits the city, especially under the financial ramifications that we face.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And that's one point that I want to make to our community is that, we're as frustrated about this as you are, trust me. But the issue at hand is how much are we willing to sacrifice financially? So that's the issue right now. I mean, do we spend the money and comply? But I mean, if we don't comply and go down this road, it's going to cost us a whole lot more money. So that's the dilemma that we have. So.
But that's how they get away with it. No one stands up to them.
Yeah, real briefly, Mr. Levitt mentioned it earlier, but in that Santa Monica case, the word on the street is that Santa Monica spent over $30 million defending it so far, and it got sent back to the Court of Appeal, which is probably sending it back to the trial court. And Schenkman, the attorney on the other side, is asking for attorney's fees of over $30 million at this point. Santa Monica might have $60 million. Fillmore does not.
Can we say something? Can we say something?
Okay.
You guys want to say something, say at the next public hearing on Thursday?
Okay. I say something, Mayor? Are you done, Chris? Okay, great. So I just want to say I understand the process of this is, like you said, a bitter pill to swallow, and looking at the amount of money if we were to fight it. But in the back of my head, I'm always thinking about frivolous lawsuits, and if they are frivolous, they are frivolous. If there is data or backing behind it, I believe that there is a reason that the cities who have tried to go up against, who have the money to go up against, and the data and the staff and everyone, still has not won. And I go back to the legislature back in 2001 and the reason for this. Why was this legislation created? What was going on within the cities of California, the districts, that prompted the legislature, at least the majority of the legislature who was able to pass the legislation, for this? And the reasons that I believe are there are for diverse representation and of having the voices heard from across different cities. I believe that there's a great number of people, I think we all know, that Fillmores who are residents who care but have not felt that they've been part of the political process for decades. I look back at the recent passing of Ernie Morales, and he was our first and our only Latino for at least 10, maybe 15 years. And again, I think someone mentioned we're counting on hands here, and you put down 3, and this is who we had before 2020 of Hispanic Latinos. And I see the frustration of how this comes about, and folks thinking of this being a divisive in town. But I think that we have a big population that could be risen up civically if they are able to, one, have candidates who are working, families, everything, but they're able to manage a campaign. People who are able to get involved and say, that's my neighbor, that's someone I know. Okay, I'll open up my house to have a little meeting. And I know that happens at large elections. It happened in our last one. We're all trying to do that. But I think if we want more diversification on council, but also of folks, and again, we want more, just more people involved in the political process. And I think to not be shut down to district elections because of the process. So I'm saying, I know, I get it. The process is ugly. It's ugly. But the why? Why was the legislature felt like they had to do this, and what have been the results? So that's all I wanted to say going forward. And I hope that we can look at maps and see where we can get more people out, more people involved, candidates and supporters and voters alike. Thanks.
It's my understanding that there'll be a tool on the online where they can go draw their own maps. Is that correct? Did we do that?
As far as I know, our vote didn't have any restrictions on what was proposed. I thought that we had.
What was whether we paid for that in the contract with the NDC? Did we opt in for the tool?
Yes, I believe we did.
Okay, so they'll have a tool on there that people can go draw the maps. Correct?
We can have that available by Thursday.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And that's in our contract?
We'll confirm with the clerk,
Okay.
but it certainly is their intent today.
Thank you.
That it is.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we're going to move on to item number 8B, a first amendment to the contract service agreement with Larry Lumber Associates for support and renewal of the waste discharge permit for Fillmore Water.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, fellow city staff, and residents of Fillmore. So, a far less interesting topic, but equally as important. We've been working with the regional board since 2015 on a new permit for us to be able to continue to discharge our reclaimed water within the city. The current order will expire on October 31st, which is 7 days from now, next week. And after extensive meetings and lots of negotiating, there is a tentative order that was released by the regional board on September 20th. And originally it was scheduled for adoption on November 16th. That date has changed recently as December 21st. So I want that to be part of the record. That date changed after the publishing of the agenda. On December 13th, 2022, the City Council approved the agreement with Larry Walker to provide the technical support and the documents needed for the renewal process. And then we've been working with them ever since. The tentative order that they've released on September 20th required a feasibility analysis to determine the most appropriate approach to compliance with their new recommended permit requirements, and to prepare an update to the city's Title 22 engineering report, which is currently already past due. As part of that tentative order, there's a climate change effects vulnerability assessment as well as a management plan. The tentative order requires the city to submit the climate plan by November 18th, 2024, and the feasibility analysis by June 30th, 2025. We don't know what the outcome of that feasibility analysis is going to do or say, but those are all new requirements that came as a result of the study and the work that it's been doing. And so therefore, that feasibility analysis is going to take a considerable more amount of work. So the recommendation here is to authorize a reallocation of $166,414 from the sewer operating fund balance to the sewer enterprise account, and to approve the First Amendment to the contract services for waste discharge requirements services with Larry Walker and Associates. With that, I'm here for any questions.
I have a question about the requirement for the document, the climate change effects vulnerability assessment and management plan, or climate plan. Were there any specific criteria or problem sets that were given to identify or define what the climate change issue is that we would address through the study?
Not specifically. There are bits and pieces of information that they do want us to look at for management analysis, but the climate change was simply related to landscaping and the kind of the normal heat island effect, those types of things.
What was the last part you said there? What effect?
Like the heat island effect.
Okay.
Any other? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion then.
I will make a motion to authorize the reallocation of the $166,414 from the sewer operating fund balance to the sewer enterprise account 301-4638-0021-245, and approve the First Amendment to the contract services agreement for waste discharge requirements services with Larry Walker Associates.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We move on to item number 8C, approve a resolution.
Sorry, Mayor, I'm a no.
Okay. I have an 8, we'll have 4-1 then. Okay? Georgie? Okay. 8C, approve a resolution to authorize certain positions and employees to approve local investment fund deposit for withdrawal and transfers.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and residents of the city of Fillmore. I'm here tonight to request approval from you to update the resolution that authorizes the city in compliance with Government Code Section 16429.1, which created what's called the Local Agency Investment Fund, and this was in 1977. The city adopted a resolution back in 1977 to be compliant with this and authorize the investment of city funds in what we call LAIF. The city continues to create those fund investments, and the ongoing benefit is that it allows the city to offer same-day liquidity while maximizing the earnings. We updated the resolution back in 2021. There have been staff changes since, title changes since, and so we would like for you to approve the resolution with the new proposed titles. So that would be David Rowlands, the city manager, as the executive director, myself, Erika Herrera, as the assistant city manager, assistant executive director, Deborah Cavallito as the finance director, Jacqueline Magdaleno as the city treasurer, and Amber Tibay as the accounting supervisor. The process requires to have 2 signatures to be able to make any changes, and this will allow the city to have the flexibility. If a person is not available or a staff member is not available, we have someone to rely on while we're conducting the operations of the city. This will also update the successor agency resolution, which was also updated back in 2021. That concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I do have a question just about the local agency investment fund, maybe a little bit more about what those investments look like, if you know.
I don't have the information right now, but I can have Deborah prepare a presentation at a later agenda date and provide an update. I think she was in the process of sending information to council per the direction of the auditor. We don't necessarily need to do a presentation at a council meeting, but that could just be shared via email. So she's not here tonight, but I'll have her prepare that and send an update.
Okay, so currently the fund is something that we contribute to.
Correct.
It's a matter of getting the correct people to make those any necessary changes.
Correct, because right now the titles and the positions that we have some staff members that are no longer employed with the city, so we're just updating the signature card per se to be able to make those changes if there's any need in the future.
Yeah, okay. And I would like to see maybe a presentation on what these investments look like.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion then.
Okay, I will make the motion that we approve the update to the city's list of authorized positions and people to be added to the city's local agency investment fund account.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item number 8D, update hometown hero banner program and consideration adopted of program guidelines.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight,
Sorry, Dave. I'm going to recuse myself from this item. Okay.
tonight we're asking City Council to receive public input and discuss the Hometown Hero banner program, and to adopt the Hometown Hero banner program policies and guidelines. Currently, there's a military banner program that was established by Virginia de la Piedra when she was the president of the Fillmore Unified School District a number of years ago, and she did it in partnership with the nonprofit Up for Education. Through that time, they also reached out and worked with the city of Fillmore to go out there and hang the banners. The responsibilities right now is if an individual wants to have a banner, they'd go to the school district, fill out an application. The school district would then need to wait to have at least a minimum of 4 banners to order. So for example, if you came in there on January 1 of 2022 and no one came in until January 1st of 2023, that banner was not going to be ordered due to the minimum order that had to be done. Well, that caused a lot of confusion and upset parents that the banner wasn't ordered. They presumed it was ordered, and then they presumed the city lost it. And so the city was getting the blame for these things. So we're trying to move forward now. The only response the city had was hanging the banners and taking down the banners. And that was the only city role that was going on. We had a couple of recent meetings recently with the school district, trying to figure out a better way to handle the program. There were some issues that really hindered the school district from handling payments, if you will, for the banners. And so we talked about it internally as a staff. Do you want to take this program on ourselves? The current program, the banners are hung for 2 years, and then they are taken down as well. So we'll be taken down. The other thing with the current program, it covers the entire Fillmore School District. When staff took a look at this, we're going to take it over as a city. We reviewed numerous city programs around the state and around the country. All the programs were operated and conducted by the city. It was within the city limits. It did not expand through school district boundaries. We are proposing to take it over, rebranding it to the Hometown Hero Banner Program. We are also going to be changing the banners out there, so you will see a difference from the old program to the new program. And we're just able to get banner, what a banner would look like. I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but we're going to have individuals send their pictures in to our person. They have their name on the bottom of it, their branch of the military, Fillmore honors. We'll hang them on Central Avenue, north of, I believe, 2nd Street, up through the high school, and then west towards, on Sespe, towards A Street. We have 21 poles we're using, so there'll be 44 banners that will be up there. We are recommending that the banner be paid for by the applicant, and that cost is approximately $138, and that the city would pay for the hardware to hang the banners because we could use that over again. We do have, I believe, 10 hardware banners right now that we can use for it. And we're also saying that the city will cover at no cost to the applicant the installation and removal of the banners for there. One of the other things we'll be doing with the program, if it's adopted tonight, we'll have a separate Hometown Hero Banner webpage on our city webpage. Be a page directly on that. We'll have an application form on there. We are going to be taking a map of the current banners and identifying on the map the location of individuals' names who are on there, so it'll be easily identified for people to look in. We are also going to be, as part of our guidelines, we'll make some clarifications in here where it does say covered by the applicant. Will take all that out, be by the city. That we are going to be installing the banners and removing the banners on a quarterly basis. That's one thing we also found. There are specific dates and times in each city that they installed them and took them down, so it's clear for everybody. It wasn't, we got a banner on Monday and tried to rush it and hang it up on a Friday due to work. So currently, right now, we're looking to do it on a quarterly basis on the last Thursday of the month. And the months would be January, April, July, and October would be the installation date, weather and holidays permitting. And at the same time, during that time period, any banners that needed to be taken down due to wear and tear, or they were up there for 2 years and needed to be taken down, someone left the military service, needed to be taken down, that at the next upcoming city council meeting, we present the banner to the family if they'd like to have that done at at the next upcoming city council meeting. So everything is pretty much spelled out within the guidelines and how it would work out for you. In addition, we'd like to create an ambassador program for anybody who would like to assist with the program in terms of work with the application process, trying to raise funds for people, serve as a liaison with the city and the staff in terms of community members who may be interested in their banner, trying to meet with the school district and say, if anybody's going to the military, here's a banner program for you to participate with. The other thing we're recommending is that after 2 years, if the banner is still in good shape and there's still availability on the poles, if you want to keep it up there, you can renew it and keep the banner up there for a 4-year period for a total of 4 years, if that is the case. We believe the program will be very clear, very straightforward, really delineates the responsibilities. We are going to be using a local vendor who will be able to make the banners. Part of the process until we do a fee study is the individual will fill out the application. The city staff will check it off and say it's okay. We will then notify the applicant, and we'll give them the contact information of the local vendor. They will then work directly hand in hand with the vendor on the the picture, the sign off on the proof, and pay directly to the vendor. Once the banner is completed, the vendor and/or the applicant will bring it back to the city, and then we'll hang them according to our schedule. And the reason why we're talking about having the applicant bring the banner to us, they may want to have the banner, take some pictures with their family members before it's hung up in the city. So that's a general overview of where we're going with it. We think the program is going to keep on moving forward, so it's a very good program. I think now that all the responsibility is in one house, people will know where to go for questions and answers. We'll be able to have all the information online. The school district indicated they will put stuff online as well on their web pages to keep the public aware if they are going to be talking to the school district to look for the program. Again, I would like to thank Virginia for starting this program a number of years ago. I know it's been a good program. There has been ups and downs, obviously, with the ordering and sometimes banners coming down and being misplaced, so we apologize for that in the past, but we believe this new program, the way it's designed, will eliminate or minimize those issues moving forward, and that's all I have.
Not a question, just a comment. This is so important, I think, to all communities. I just want to thank Dave and the staff for working on this as much as they've done and improving the program and making it happen. But I think it's really important. Thank you.
I have one. Dave, did you get a chance to read Amy Garola's comments?
Yes.
Are we able to address those in the existing?
The cost was already addressed. We made those modifications already.
Into it? Okay.
Into it. The other is a decision that city council would need to make in terms of, are you going to open it up to the entire school district? City staff's recommending to just keep it strictly for the city.
What was it open to before?
When the school district operated it, it was for the school district site.
Okay.
And when we did all the review period with all the other jurisdictions, none of them had it open to the school district. It's only for their city residents. So that's how we have it modeled. But if city council would like to change that, that's city council's decision. We'll do whatever you guys would like us to do.
Okay.
I personally like Amy's suggestion of opening it up. I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, I think that was a good idea.
I'll make a comment. I just wanted I'll follow up with you, Albert, on that one. But just first, thank you to Dave, to Troy, to all the staff that worked on it. Thank you to Lisa Hammond. Thank you to Virginia for the program. It has really taken some coming together to work through this, from being sort of, like you said, like a cobbling together of different agencies trying to make this work, to and not having that continuity or follow through, or sort of a really accountability responsible agencies. So now the city taking it on, and the city is where it belongs. So I'm really glad that we're doing it. It's going to be a solid program. To follow up on Albert's suggestion, I think we should change it to actually the school district, which would include the Bardsdale area, the area over Cliff Drive and Goodenough Road, Grand Avenue, and Piru, in that these are students who will come and be part of the high school, and from high school may go, directly to the military. So I don't want to skip any of those families and leave them out of potentially having that banner. And as a follow-up, I know Piru is its own individual community. I do want to talk to Manny and see if the county will maybe, start something up there. But in the meantime, that doesn't happen, I think we should include the whole school district. That's my thoughts.
And if we did that, it'd be a first come, first serve. We'd only have 44 slots, right?
That's correct. It'd be first come, first serve.
Okay. So some may be left off, so.
Well, right. First come, first serve.
I'm just stating it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd prefer if it was open to the whole district too. I mean, if we could just use the district boundaries, whatever those may be. Since we're limiting to 44 slots anyway,
Yeah, I would agree with that. The only concern I have is, will someone who's from Piru, for example, want to expand the program of putting the flag or the banners up in their community as opposed to on Central?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I was just thinking get this program and have that. But and I'll start a conversation with Manny to see if we can get things moving in the Piru community, and if so, have it be a county thing for those who want it to see their banners up in Piru residents.
I would hesitate to make that last step as far as getting the county involved until we talk to them. I mean, I don't think
right.
that can be part of our motion now.
Oh, yeah, no. The motion was just to make it inclusive.
She's just saying she'll reach out and
Right.
see if the county will
Yeah.
hire it.
Yeah, just to see. But for us, if we want to set our boundaries, we set our boundaries and don't make any changes unless we see something happen there.
Okay, I would go along with that.
Okay. Do we need to do a motion on this? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion. I'm getting tired.
I'll make that motion, Mayor. I move that the city council, we didn't have any public speakers. Okay, we gave input. We adopt the Hometown Hero Banner Program policies and guidelines as amended, as we discussed here.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Can we get Chris? You're hot too. Sweating like a pig. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8E.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, I recused myself because I have a banner that somebody had paid for. So,
I figured something like that.
yeah, sorry. Procedural error, sorry.
Move on to item 8E, introduction of first reading ordinance number 23955 to amend the Fillmore Municipal Code, Chapter 7.12 and 11.20.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Staff recommends that you introduce the first reading of the ordinance 23955. The city addresses street vendors by two codes in the Fillmore Municipal Code, it's Chapter 7.12 and 11.20. If you recall, in 2018, the state of California adopted Senate Bill 946, and that limited all cities in California with regulations to street vendors. So Fillmore's codes changed, just like all the cities in the state of California, limiting our regulations. Essentially, we said you need to get a business license and a health permit, and then we did regulate it away from parks because the city felt that we have concessions and things like that within the parks, and they should have first dibs on vendors and such. Well, now there's Senate Bill 972, which passed, becomes effective January 1st, which further limits our ability for fines, issuing fines. So we've reduced our fine amount, administrative fine amount, and that's in the ordinance. And we're also would like to address canopies for vendors. We're talking about real large canopies. So we have had a vendor, non-permitted, not allowed, completely illegal. They had a very, very large canopy. We're not talking about little canopy about this size, but we're talking about a very large canopy. And they also had an outdoor kitchen. So we're suggesting to adjust our ordinance to remove or not have the ability of these large canopies or large structures. The smaller ones are permitted, it's not an issue, but the large canopies obstruct a passageway along the sidewalk. That concludes my presentation. I'll take any comments or questions that you may have.
Any comments or questions for Kevin?
Just a clarification. I know you just said it, but just to make sure that if there is a street vendor operating permitted, legal, they can't have their personal umbrella
Just providing
for
shade
shade.
is not an issue. We're talking about the large shade structures.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion then.
Okay, I will make a motion let's see.
Read the ordinance.
What am I
Maybe
doing?
the ordinance.
Read the ordinance.
Oh, the ordinance. Thank you. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fillmore amending Chapter 7.2, vendors, sidewalk vendors, and solicitors, and Chapter 11.20, signs and awnings of the Fillmore Municipal Code to update and supplement the city's penalty provisions for sidewalk vending regulations.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 8F, approval request for new marketing toolkit and adoption of usage policy.
Thank you, Mayor. As we get set up here, staff's asking City Council approve the new marketing toolkit and adopt the usage policy for the marketing toolkit set forth within the staff report. The Economic Development Ad hoc Committee and staff are recommending City Council approval for the implementation of a new marketing toolkit. The toolkit is designed to enhance the overall branding and promotion of our city and businesses. Additionally, staff developed a policy outlining the rules and guidelines for the proper usage of the marketing toolkit by local merchants if they would like. In an effort to boost local businesses and promote a cohesive brand identity of the city, we worked with the help of Downtown Strategies, who did our overall plan, 4 or 5 year plan for the downtown area. They linked us with one of their trusted partners who specializes in community branding for downtown areas. The company's called Arnett Muldrow and Associates. They're based in Greenville, South Carolina. They have extensive experience working with cities throughout the country. They did an initial deep dive into the city, and they held a community discussion with members of FAB and anybody else in the community who wanted to participate, received their feedback, and came back with a marketing toolkit and a branding program for us. I like to get into the branding aspect of it and the toolkit. The guidelines are kind of boring to go over, but this time I kind of take a look at what they've proposed to adopt tonight. So the branding logo, as you can see, Fillmore is kind of highlighted out there. Are colors. These are different avenues and different color schemes you can use with the new branding aspect of it. You know, Fillmore, fill your life with more. Fillmore support, Fillmore opportunity. Kind of play off on words. So one of the things they wanted to do, if you want to carry out the logos in this fashion, this is one example. Again, here taking new signage in the downtown area throughout the community to drive them to our parks, neighborhoods, libraries, the high schools. These are signage that we could look at purchasing in the future. Again, taking the new branding, marketing toolkit logo out there. And again, this logo, this is not going to replace the city's logo itself. That will be on all of our official documents. Signage, again, taking the Fillmore colors. It's kind of, again, very nice, very crisp, very clean to have out here for the community. Banners, again, different colors. You got the, got our wonderful Fillmore sign incorporated here. We can put some of these in the downtown area along different parts of the community if you want to go down this area. Again, there's more play on words in here. Small is more mellow. Actually, we actually do one like that or not, but that is the play on words. And the leaves that you're seeing are the avocados and lemon trees and lime trees out here. So these are some branding for merchandise. How it would look on t-shirts, on a bag, a hat. And I think we have one more slide. I'm not sure. And that's kind of it right there. So it's kind of in a nutshell what it looks like. It's crisp and clean. The staff like the new marketing toolkit. They like the way it looks. It's clean and simple and safe. It's not that hard logo that you have that we currently use right now. If this gets adopted, then staff would probably want to come back and ask City Council to potentially order some shirts for staff and for City Council members with the new marketing logo on it, and put this on our webpage and kind of get going with this. One thing I would like to say is that City Council over the past year has taken a big initiative with the downtown area. We've done the storefront rehabilitation program out there. We've had about 7 or 8 individuals, stores participate with that. We've done 2 workshops with the owners in the downtown area to, one, how to market their business, and just today we had one on the storefront, on the window displays, how to improve those, make those look very inviting for people to come in, talk about the importance of lighting, the importance of, dimensions, and high and low triangles, the 3 dimensions with the squares. We will have that information posted on our city webpage under economic development as well. So if you're not able to attend the presentation day, you can take a look at it. We'll have the slides, and we'll also post a video on there when that becomes available. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Any questions for Dave?
Dave, I do have one question. I noticed that there's maybe a little bit of a discrepancy on the design for the citrus that I think had been brought up at a previous meeting. I don't know if maybe there was just a mixing of some of the pictures where it might not look like a citrus fruit. I just wanted to maybe clarify. I think it starts at on the slide there labeled signage. Right, actually, even here on these, there's that kind of blue leaf that kind of threw off some of the people who sat in on those meetings for design concepts. I just wanted to make sure that there's supposed to be just one design, right? And maybe those stuck into the slides or some of the other city packets or the agenda packets.
No, those are the same designs. The difference is a color variation on some of them, if we look at the same ones.
I guess this one shows like 6 leaves, and the other one had 7 that I think had been brought up to maybe change or eliminate. And it looks like they eliminated it, but
Yeah, I got
maybe
6 on all these.
Yeah, or maybe it was just the angle or something. I'm not sure exactly, but it does look a little bit different. I think they are different. I'm not sure whether that was intentional. I wanted to bring that up because I know it was a sticking point at some of the previous meetings.
Yeah, I know they cleaned this up to make them more like leaves, and the last one they were attached to a little closer.
Okay.
And now they're more spread out than they were last time.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just seek clarification and make sure that it's pushed out, because already in the logo or the design itself, there is a discrepancy, and if we're holding people accountable for not changing it, we want to make sure that it's consistent what we push out. And to me, it appears, and maybe I'm not looking at it right, it seems like there might be a discrepancy there. So, but other than that, I think it's definitely a good step forward.
Okay, I'll jump in and say that I really like it. I really like the whole play on words with the more, more. I like the more opportunity or more these different things. I think it's really good. I think it's really fresh. And yeah, if you get the leaves right, it definitely, it looks like the orange, the citrus.
You guys should be identifying which leaves, because it's one of those books you look at and you go, tell us which leaf.
Figure that out. But anyhow, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this. And yeah, like you said, get it out on T-shirts and making those next steps to, like you said, for our downtown and just for our whole branding as a city. Great job.
Yeah, this is marketing toolkit, and I guess I'm confused because I'm not sure what the toolkit entails. Is that all of these options up here? So these are variations of the new logo that would be available. So if someone had a need, a marketer had a need for Fillmore, Fill Your Life with More, that would be available to them?
If we wanted to use that, correct.
So, but they can't deviate from what we see up here. They couldn't, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
We control everything that's on there.
Okay.
So, Rita?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So if the council does decide to approve this, then the next step would be to push this out to the merchants?
Merchants push out our city webpage, and then we take a look at exactly what do we want to do from a city council standpoint. Do we want to do a couple of banners, for example, come back and say, here's maybe 3 or 4 banners we want to do, and have those hung up for a while. Then do we want to do merchandise? Do we want to get with the new marketing tool, if you will, marketing branding logo put on shirts or hats for the employees in city council, kind of get that going, and then, open up if people in the public want to buy one, they can order through the city as we go down, as we start slowly implementing this process.
I really like the wayfinding signs that they put on there. It really looks sharp.
Any other questions or comments? With that, I'd like to make a recommendation to staff.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the new marketing toolkit and adopt the usage policy for the marketing toolkit as set forward.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item number 9, committee, commission, and board reports. Open it up.
Our 2+2 with the school district is scheduled for Thursday morning, 7:30 over at the school district office. Dave, has the agenda been posted yet, or have you received it?
Yeah, the agenda was posted. It was sent out last week to the group.
Okay.
I'll send you a copy of it.
Gotcha. And mostly I just want to make sure that the public can find that. I haven't had a chance to go into their website yet.
Yeah, it should be on the school district's website.
Okay, good.
Dave alluded to this earlier. I did participate in the Zoom meeting today with regard to the storefronts for our retail strategies. People were there, our representative was there to provide input on how to best display the windows up and down Central, East stores. And I know that, everyone's busy. We did have one of our merchants there, our theater owner, Sean McCulley, was the only merchant there. So this is just it was really informative, and it will be available we can still pass it out. So people that want to view this, it was really interesting, and I think it'd be very helpful for someone who has a storefront on Central, or any place for that matter. But, and I just want to encourage those that do have businesses up and down Central to, participate as much as you can. We're putting out a lot of effort here to try to improve Central, our downtown district, and we can't do that without participation by, all of the merchants that are, and the landlords as well. So just make that plea. So thank you.
Okay, Albert, you have anything? Okay. With that, we're going to move on to city manager's verbal report.
Thank you. A couple items. First, going to start off that reminder, we have a workshop tomorrow on the advanced meter infrastructure. It's an educational forum for business owners and residents. Essentially, what city is considering a mass upgrade to an advanced meter infrastructure system that gives the businesses and residents added control and visibility over their water bills and water consumption. Again, there'll be an educational forum tomorrow to learn more about this and how you can control your usage. One of the nice things about this, if we do move forward, it'll be no out-of-pocket cost for the city. It'll also enable savings for the residents as well, because they'll be able to monitor their water. If they have a water leak, they hit it right away, so they can notify the city and monitor their usage as they get close to whatever bills they want to pay. They'll be able to see it real quick versus not getting that surprise bill every month, if you will. So that'll be very good. A couple of things we heard earlier tonight, and I just want to kind of talk a little bit about this. Two Rivers Park, we heard about that again in terms of lights out there. Just for the public's information, the city has gone out twice over the past 6 years to go for some grant funding for ball field lights to upgrade the playing services out there, and both times we were turned down by the state due to the fact that they were supporting brand new parks and not old parks. Currently, we are working with California Consulting with 3 different grants. We had a meeting earlier this morning. The current grant we're looking at is an urban greening grant. So we need to include new landscaping, some trees out at the park. It kind of gets us out there. But we're also looking at doing an above ground irrigation system. And also there's a new turf grass out there that is It's compatible with the high salt water that's out there for recycled water. It's made for that. It's a highly low maintenance, drought tolerant as well. This is the same grass that was used if you watch the Men's World Cup soccer tournament. It's the same grass that they use for that tournament over in Qatar. So it's pretty good. If it stood up that heat, it would last up to here. In addition, City Council authorized staff earlier this year to work with Wildan Engineering to come back with preliminary plans for improvements at Two Rivers Park, which would include field lights, resurfacing the area, turf grass, and above ground irrigation system. We anticipate having that completed within the next 3 weeks. We'll bring that back to City Council for your discussion. Just so you're not shocked, preliminary numbers are between $2 and $4 million at this point in time. So again, I know the public wants to have these things done. It's going to be a good discussion plan for City Council. The upgrades are not cheap for the city or for the teams that potentially could be using the new facility out there. And so City Council doing the best that we can, trying to be mindful of the revenue that we have and our available funds. We understand it's a high priority for our youth groups and for our sports teams, also a high priority for our City Council to address this issue. So we'll kind of bring that back and put together a game plan, hopefully, with City Council. Once we get the numbers, probably end up sitting down with all the youth groups, if there's a cost out there, and see which direction do we want to go, where's the improvement should be. So overall, that's kind of where we're at with the Two Rivers Parks. I want everybody to know that. And lastly, I'd like to call up Chief real quick to give a discussion on Red Ribbon Week.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to speak a little bit about Red Ribbon Week. Red Ribbon Week is a 7-day campaign that is celebrated annually October 23rd through 31st to raise awareness for the destructive consequences of drug abuse and to help build drug-free communities. Red Ribbon Week is the oldest and largest drug prevention program in the nation, reaching millions of young people each year. The campaign provides communities with a forum to bring together parents, schools, businesses as we look for new and innovative ways to keep the youth in America drug-free. This year's theme for the campaign is Be Kind to Your Mind, Live Drug-Free. The Ventura County Sheriff's Office and the City of Fillmore would like to remind parents to have conversations with your children and educate them about the dangers of drug use. Just bear with me, I'm going to try to repeat that in Spanish. They don't screw it up too bad. La Semana del Listo Rojo es una campaña de 7 días que se celebra anualmente del 23 al 31 de octubre para crear conciencia sobre las consecuencias destructivas del abuso de drogas y ayudar a construir comunidades libres de drogas. La Semana del Listo Rojo es el programa de prevención de drogas más grande y antiguo del país y llega a millones de jóvenes cada año. Esta campaña proporciona a las comunidades un foro para reunir a padres, escuelas y empresas mientras buscamos formas nuevas y innovadoras de mantener a los jóvenes de Estados Unidos libres de drogas. El tema de este año es Sé amable con tu mente, vive libre de drogas. La oficina del sheriff del condado de Ventura y la ciudad de Fillmore desean recordar a los padres que conversen con sus hijos y los eduquen sobre los peligros del uso de drogas. Gracias. That's all I got. Thank you for your time.
City Council will conduct a closed session because there is a significant exposure to litigation in 3 cases. We're in closed session. likes to talk. Where's the rib? The council met in closed session on 3 items. There is no reportable action from that. We're going to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled special meeting at 6:30 on Thursday, September 26th. Meeting adjourned.
October. Thank you.
October.